Okay, let's look at the upper aspect of the body, okay? The pectoral girdle. So let me grab some of the stuff here, okay? The first one I'm going to do is the clavicle, just because it's very simplistic. So here we have clavicle and its features. Here's the clavicle, okay? All of its majesticness. The only thing we have to identify besides the clavicle are the two ends, all right? We have an end that's more flatter, and we have an end that's more square and stumpy, right? It's easy to figure out. The flatter layer is always the acromial end of the clavicle. It's the most lateral, okay? And if you just sit there and kind of shrug your shoulder, right, you can feel, and maybe hear, that clavicle, that acromial end of the clavicle sliding out over the processes of the scap, right? So that is the acromial end, the acromial end of the clavicle. The other one is the sternal end, all right? That's where it attaches right here to the sternum, hence the sternal end. So there it is, flat, acromial end, stumpy, sternal end. Shrink that one up for you here. Then we have the scapula, and here it is in all of its glory. Back side, front side, back side, front side. We have the acromion. We used to call it the acromion process. For whatever reason, they don't. It's just the acromion. If you wrote the acromion process on the exam, I'm not going to dock you, but they do just call it the acromion now. So I use the acromion process because I'm old, but you just can call it the acromion. All right, it is posterior. All right, we have the coracoid process sits in the front. Okay, so the acromion process is in the back, superior. The coracoid process is anterior and inferior, comparably. Okay. If we go to the back side here, we have this little shank of bone right here. This is the spine of the scapula right here. And the spine of the scapula gets us to the acromion process, or to the acromion. Okay. If I look at the medial aspect, I'm sorry, the lateral aspect right here, then we can see this little shallow cavity, and it is super shallow compared to the acetabulum. Right? This is the glenoid cavity. That's where the head of the humerus will sit and articulate with. Okay? So that's how that goes right there. Okay? So there's the glenoid cavity. Again, this is lateral because, okay, it's where the arm sticks out, right? My arm's lateral. So this makes this the lateral border of the scapula, and that makes this the medial border of the scapula. So easy points, right? But if I go to the back there and I show off that spine of the scapula again, you see I have a small little smooth area right up here. That is called the supraspinous fossa, third column there. And if I go just right underneath that spine of the scapula, then you can see I have another little smooth area right here, shallow depression. That's the infraspinous fossa. A couple muscles are going to be found there later. Okay. If I go to the front, okay, all of this is under. It's sub. Sub means below. And when I sit there and I put this here on me, okay, you can see the spine of the scapula is kind of up, and the anterior surface is kind of below it, sub, right? Can't see it. So all of this surface right here on the anterior aspect of it is referred to as the subscapular fossa, middle column right there. As I continue down here, I have my humerus. Okay? There it is. All of its glory. Some weird, funky stuff here at the inferior aspect of it. Just gonna pull back. There it is. It is smaller than the femur. It is smaller than the tibia, all right, so don't get them confused. But we have the head, the whole thing's the humerus here. We have the head of the humerus, and we're just going to start, okay, kind of at the top here. All of this bulbous right here. All of this is the head of the humerus. Then if I go down, we have a couple different necks. I have an anatomical neck and a surgical neck. Okay? Surgical neck is right here. Okay? Surgical neck, I'm going to put this around it, is right here. All right? That's the surgical neck. The anatomical neck is just right under the capitis, just right underneath the head. All right? So there it is right there. Okay? That is the anatomical neck. So I've got the head, the anatomical neck of the humerus, and the surgical neck of the humerus right there. Surgical neck, because that's just a common place of fracture. Then I have a couple different tubercles. Okay, I have a couple different tubercles. These are on the front side. Okay. We have a greater tubercle, lateral, and a lesser tubercle right here in the front. Okay. Greater tubercle, lesser tubercle. In between them is a little intertubercle sulcus. I don't have it highlighted, but that's where your biceps tendon is. So if you just sit there and supinate and pronate your hand, you can feel that biceps tendon rotating within that little sulcus groove in between those two tubercles right there. Staying up superior here, this, okay, again is pointing medial. So this one sits over here on this side. So this is the outside, and this has been rubbed down for a while, so it's kind of hard to see, but there is a little bump out of bone right here. Okay, a little bump out of bone. It's where the deltoid inserts. So this is the deltoid tuberosity. Excuse me, deltoid tuberosity. So if I look here, as I go down all of this, just like we had the shaft of the femur earlier, here is the shaft of the humerus. I have anatomical neck. Let's see, coronoid, pitcha, deltoid, great tube of the head. Okay, so now we are down here at the inferior aspect of the humerus. Okay. You can see we're going to have kind of two smooth surfaces right there. Okay, almost condyle-like, but they're not called condyles, of course, right? But those are going to be some articulating surfaces, but right above them, right here, I have two little bump outs. Okay? These are my epicondyles. I have a lateral epicondyle on the lateral aspect, and I have a medial epicondyle of the humerus on the medial aspect. I have a couple shallow depressions here called fossas. I have coronoid fossa. There it is, and the olecranon fossa. Okay. Coronoid fossa is on the front. It is that shallow depression right there. Okay. It is that shallow depression right there. Okay. The coronoid process of the ulna actually fits right in there. So that's how this guy gets its name. Okay. So this is the coronoid fossa of the humerus. If I look on the back side, holy smokes, you see a big old hole there. That is the olecranon fossa of the humerus. Okay. That's the olecranon process, or I'm sorry, olecranon fossa of the humerus. And it's where the olecranon sits. Okay, so when you extend your arm out, lock it out, ouch. Okay, when you lock that thing out, that olecranon fits right in there. All right. And if I grab the ulna, here's the ulna because it's shaped like a U, okay, like a wrench. All right. So when you straighten out your arm, there you can see it sits right inside there. right inside there. I have the coronoid fossa, I have the ulcranon fossa. The last two things we have, oh, I'm sorry, radial fossa. Radial fossa is really small, okay? The radial fossa, if the coronoid fossa is medial, okay? The radial fossa is lateral, okay? Right there. It's a very shallow little hole, shallow depression, sorry, shallow depression. The last two things we have, guys, are the trochlea and the capitulum. This is the way that I remember, okay? So there's the head, right? Head always points medially, okay? I have a capitulum and I have a trochlea, right? So the trochlea looks like a gear, okay? Trochlea like a pulley. I believe that's what that means, okay? And that's it right there. That is medial. Right here, this articulating surface is the capitulum. A gentleman will take his cap off laterally when he says hello to a lady. That's how you remember it. Well, that's how people used to do it back in the day, right? When they wore hats. Now nobody wears hats, okay? So this is the capitulum. And this is the trochlea, okay? Trochlea looks like a little pulley. Capitulum is lateral. We have the ulna and we have the radius. Again, like I said, ulna tells you what it is because it says it's the U right there. Radius has a round head to it. Our radius are round. Pretty easy, excuse me, to remember there. So we have the ulna here. I have the ulcranon process, and now it's just called the ulcranon, all right? So here's the ulcranon. It is posterior. In the front here, I have the coronoid process of the ulna. Okay. Got to put of the ulna. Right in between them, in the middle column right there, trochlear notch. Okay, so there's your trochlear notch. Shaft of the ulna. And then lastly, we have styloid process of the ulna. Okay. You can see it right there. Okay. And that is it. The radius is just as simplistic and just as easy. Okay, obviously all of this is the radius. It has a round head. That's how I know it's the radius. We have head of the radius, neck of the radius. We have that little bump right there, and that's probably more important to know, and that's the radial tuberosity. It's that little bump right there. There you can really see it. There's the bump. And then at the most distal aspect, we have a little styloid process as well. Here's the styloid process of the radius, okay? So we have a lot of styloid processes, and always they're this tiny little sliver shank of bone. Just like we had in the foot, we have the same kind of setup here, okay? We have the thumb is number one, first finger, index, middle, ring, pinky. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So you're starting at the thumb, counting around, all right? So the same kind of general gist. I'm just going to kind of work backwards here, going into the palm and wrist. So here, the phalanges at the bottom, right? Phalange 1, the thumb. Phalange 2, 3, 4, 5. Just like we saw within the foot. Okay, has the same thing. It has a proximal phalanx and a distal phalanx of digit 1. A proximal, middle, and distal phalanx of digit 2, 3, 4, and 5. just like in the foot. Okay, so they are the exact same. Carpus means hand, so these are we'll have the carpal bones and then the metacarpal bones. Metacarpal bones make up the palm, right? Okay, so we just looked at our phalanges. Okay, we just looked at our digits. Okay, so we just looked at those. All right, now we are looking at the palm. Okay, the palm is your metacarpals, and they're named according to who they are, what digit they go to. Metacarpal 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Number 1 is associated with the thumb, and then go from there. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay. Oh man, that's broke. Okay. So those are easy, just like in the foot. The carpals are down in here. Okay, there are these bones right down here at the bottom. Okay, all those little pebbles down there, all of those are individual bones. All right, this is your wrist. Okay, this is this tiny little wrist right here. Okay, we have 2 rows of bones. Okay, these are all collectively referred to as the carpals, but you're going to be identifying them individually. Okay, proximal row, distal row. Okay, proximal row, distal row, 4 and 4. 4 bones make up the proximal, 4 bones make up the distal row within the carpals. There's a mnemonic. Some lovers try positions that they can't handle. So when you're looking at the wrist in anatomical position, okay, we start with the proximal row, okay, and that's right here. Okay, here's my thumb. Okay, so we're going this direction. Okay, so here's my proximal row. Okay, starting right there. Okay. Scaphoid, some. Lunate, lovers. Tri, it's that one right there. Triquetrum, sorry. This little pebble of bone right there on the top is your pisiform, okay? If you put your hand in extreme extension there, okay, you can palpate that pisiform right there, right there. So that proximal row, scaphoid, lunate, triquetrum, and then pisiform on top. The distal row, trapezium. It's connected to the thumb. To grab the trapeze, I need a thumb. If I don't grab, I can't grab the trapeze without a thumb. So I need that thumb there. So the trapezium is right there. Sorry, right there. I'm backwards. My image is backwards. Okay, there's my thumb. There's my trapezium. Okay, trapezium. That. They. Trapezoid. Okay, it's that tiny little bone right there at the end of my fingertip. Okay, shaped like a trapezoid. The next one is capitate. I got my finger right on it. Okay, got my finger right on it, right there at the end of my fingertip. Can't. And then lastly, this bone right here, and it has this hook on it. Okay, has this hook. Handle. Hook of the hamate. Well, you don't have to identify the hook of the hamate, but it's the hamate bone. Okay, it looks like a hammer because it has a little handle that you can hold and whack. Okay, so some lovers try positions that they can't handle. Scaphoid, lunate, triquetrum. On top of that is pisiform. Top of that is pisiform right there. Trapezium, trapezoid, capitate, hamate. there's your pectoral girdle.